Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Beautiful Sunday afternoon here in Appalachia. Big storm came through and just lots of rain last night, but now it's all gone. Sunshine, blue skies, and the humidity took the humidity with it. So much nicer working outside on my nature trail when it's not when it's 50% humidity instead of 90% humidity. Big difference. So, anyways, one of the things I was thinking about the continuation of a video from last week, which was called A Reason, a Season, or Forever, where I talked about why people come into our lives. Sometimes it's just for a reason, and I gave the story about the young man who guided me to Cherokee, North Carolina, and then I ended up here in Cherokee County, North Carolina. And the seasons, which is a lot of relationships, they might last for weeks, months, or years. Um, and then there's forever, which starts, of course, with our families, some friends, maybe. But there's one of the things I was thinking about with regards to particularly seasons. And this, of course, goes back to another video also that's titled The Stories We Tell Ourselves. And but I was asking for guidance about certain questions with regards to people who have come into my life. And the guidance that I'm getting is that certain people, especially over the last 15 to 16 years, have been here to help guide me through what I would call a process of initiation. And I've talked about initiation on some other videos, and I've talked about initiation, I think, in the, Healing the Divine Masculine series. But some of us are here to go through this process of initiation. And some people go through it in secret societies, for example, the infamous Illuminati, the infamous Masons, Freemasons, etc., etc. They have their own rites of initiation. It was in the rites of passage videos that I talked about rites of initiation. The earth honoring cultures, where they take a boy from away from the mother and put him through an initiatory process, to from boyhood to manhood. Then, but for some of us here in this modern society, I would call it a rite of initiation for our own personal soul development. I don't want to give it too many labels or generalize it too much, because I think it is very, very individualistic for each of us. I believe that as I've asked about this and pondered it now this week, especially, things are becoming clear that we may spend a few years in an intense relationship with somebody, which is in part a part of this initiatory process. There are, at least for me, there are other aspects to this intense relationship, trauma bonding being one of them. But that is part of the healing process that is required for this larger initiatory process. Okay, we have to go through these, whether it's trauma bonding or some other type of pain body experience, could be grief, loss of a loved one, that helps us to get deeply in touch with these very base emotions, okay, so that we can go back to what I talked about in the Healing the Divine Masculine recently, which is acknowledge, embrace. So we can embrace the grief, embrace the despair, embrace the shame, embrace the fear, embrace, acknowledge, embrace, and then begin to transform, transmute, and integrate. And I believe that, you have to excuse me, the no-see-ums are out here. It's tough when I don't have a fire going. I believe that this is what I've been going through, and I think it's what a lot of people are going through. It's why a lot of people I see on the small amount of time I spend on social media, which I talked about yesterday, a lot of people are alone, and they're living alone and spending time alone, and it's not always easy. We are There's something in our mass consciousness that says that we need to be part of a tribe. Gigi Young, who I watch on YouTube once in a while, talks about how the tribal mentality is a leftover from Atlantis. I happen to think that's true. It resonates with me. Really getting eaten out here. Whew. You must love all my sweat. The tribal mentality, this need to be part of a tribe, is something that is a remnant of the Atlantean times, as is the idea of going to Mars and all that. But many of us are here. How does she put it? I think she puts it to find the I. And we don't mean this I, we mean the I. I is in I am. So, in order to do that, we have to get deeply in touch with ourself. And, in order to do that, we need to spend some time alone, which may be years. But it's, when I look at going back 15 years ago, somebody who helped launch me into my spiritual journey, as they call it, back in 2009, right after my mother died. And then I went off to be alone for a while. Then I met somebody else who was a part of the journey. And then I went off to be alone for a while. Then I met somebody else who was a part of the journey and spent a couple years having a very intense relationship on a lot of levels. And now I'm off alone again. And it's a part of this integration process. You take all these seasons and lessons and insights from these periods of time, these seasons, and then you integrate them. And it's all part of that initiatory process. You could call it the hero's journey. You could call it the very, very reminiscent of the major arcana of the tarot. They all describe that spiritual evolutionary process that we go through, that many of us are here to go through. And that's why people come into our life for a season, is to help us on that path. So think about who has come into your life to help you with particularly the subtle guidance, as opposed to the in-your-face guidance. It's the subtle guidance, and also the to experience certain emotions, because that's part of what we're here for, is to experience this emotional spectrum that humans are capable of experiencing. But think about who's come into your life, but don't think about it. Don't think about the future too much. If you meet somebody new, don't start analyzing. Well, let's see, what is this person here for now? Yeah, don't get caught in that. You have to let it unfold organically. It's very important. Yeah, because we'll just muck it up if we start thinking too much. We don't want to do that. Just live and let live. Let it happen. Surrender to it. Okay. And if it's depending on who it is, you might be able to talk about it. Talk about what each of you are feeling. What kind of guidance are you getting? But don't try to outguess it or outthink it, or predict it, or even control it. Heaven forbid. Don't do that. So there's a lot that goes into these relationships. There's a lot in these relationships that we don't see. And I noticed that in the young guys in my men's group. Some of them are just going through some very difficult times with very difficult relationships. And they are not at a point where they can step back and become the observer and look at it from a detached standpoint. I can tell by the wording that they use when they describe their relationships. And we all go through that. I mean, I went through that for decades with relationships that when I look back on them, no, I didn't realize what was happening at that moment. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of practice to do that. But we can start to do that. We can start to become the observer. And if you're in a relationship with somebody who you can talk to about it, that's even better. I have not, unfortunately, experienced that yet, but there's always hope. You never know what's going to happen. So if you are a man watching this, especially a young man, there is something that I want you to think about, and I want you to start practicing, and that's grounding yourself every day. I want you to just stand and focus on your feet, your tailbone, and your hands all connecting to Mother Earth. I am grounded, I am stable, I am balanced, I am safe. And I want you to do that every day. All the men do that every day. I want you to just set the intention for 30 seconds or 60 seconds. Set the intention to ground yourself in Mother Earth. We need that. It's part of what I talked about yesterday with less media equals a happier life, less agitation. We need to ground ourselves from all this chaotic energy. We need to give it to Mother Earth and let her transform it and transmute it and integrate it. So consciously do that every day. And it's better if you can do it outside with the trees and the grass. But wherever you are, set the intention to just connect to Mother Earth. All right? Every day. Only takes 30 seconds or a minute. All right? So until next time, cosmic energy, earth energy, heart energy, sending loving heart energy out to all beings, all dimensions, all timelines, all realities. May this day be filled with compassion, loving kindness, and courage. Till the next time.